The skies were grey, but on the 26th of January last year, there were still celebrations on Sydney Harbour for Australia Day. This year, the weather forecast looks good, but on Tuesday, some won't be celebrating. Many Aboriginal people think the date is a day to mourn. It marks the anniversary of the landing in 1788 of Captain Arthur Phillip's First Fleet and the start of the first British colony on land now known as Australia. For some with Aboriginal heritage, even if they have European heritage too, that was a colonial invasion.
Well, it was an invasion. There was no collusion between the people who lived here and the British. The British just came in.
To those here planning a march on Tuesday to mark what they call Invasion Day, 1788 began a period of history when some Indigenous Australians were initially massacred by white settlers, later marginalised. Even today, Aboriginal Australians are seriously disadvantaged compared with the descendants of many migrants.
I don't think that any Aboriginal person should be celebrating Australian Day. Every single one of our people should be standing up saying, no, I will not sing the national anthem on this day. And this is the reason why, because I'm an Aboriginal person in this country and because this hurts my people.
Many Indigenous people, though, will be taking part in official Australia Day events, and organisers say they're sensitive to what the day means.
It's important for us to recognise that Australia Day is a complex day for Indigenous people, but the great thing that's happened this year is that there's been wonderful engagement between Australia Day, the Australia Day Council and the Indigenous community.
For those protesting, their biggest issue is the date. Australia's National Day, they think, should have nothing to do with the arrival of Captain Phillip over there in 1788. Instead, it should mark the birth of this country on the 1st of January 1901, when 6 states became the Commonwealth of Australia. Marking January the 26th instead is, to some, offensive.
1st of January, that should be Australia Day. I mean, that would be in line with their own history. This is in line with the history of creating war against Aboriginal people. You can't acknowledge that.
Next year, Australians will vote on whether to change their country's constitution so that it recognises the country was inhabited before white settlers arrived. Changing the date of the country's National Day, say some, should follow. Andrew Thomas, Al Jazeera, Sydney.